could honestly say no.
Numbers up there.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 18th Muscatine City Council meeting. Cinda, will you please do the roll call?
Councilmember Spread,
Present.
Harvey,
Present.
Brockert,
Present.
Saucedo,
Present.
Brackett,
Present.
Fitzgerald,
Present.
Malcolm,
Present.
7 present, 0 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, Cinda. Will you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to council about something that's not already on tonight's agenda? Hearing no one, we're going to go ahead and move on to number 5, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, which includes items 6A and B, items 8A through F, items 12A, and tonight's bills totaling $1,866,880.25.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by Councilman Saucedo. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries with all ayes. Moving on down to 7, we have 2 public hearings tonight. The first one concerns the proposed sale of surplus property described as the westerly 123 feet of the southerly 30.6 feet of Lot 47 of Terrace Heights addition to the City of Muscatine, Iowa, to Muscatine downtown investors. Prior to any formal action by City Council, a public hearing is required. Now is the time for the public to comment. Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to close?
Move to close.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that you, Councilman Spread? We have a motion to close by Councilman Saucedo with a second by Councilman Spread. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries with all ayes. The second public hearing tonight concerns the proposed amendment to the revitalization plan for the 2013 Muscatine Housing Urban Revitalization Area. This is the first step in amending the urban revitalization plan and creating a new urban revitalization area previously discussed at the in-depth meeting discussions. Now is the time for the public to comment. Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to close?
So moved.
Councilman Saucedo. Councilman Harvey, would you like to second?
Yes. Yes.
We have a motion by Councilman Saucedo with a second by Councilman Harvey. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries with all ayes. Moving on down to 11A. We have a resolution authorizing the sale of surplus property described as the westerly 123 feet of the southerly 30.6 feet of Lot 47 of Terrace Heights addition to the City of Muscatine, Iowa, to Muscatine downtown investors. This is the public hearing we just had above. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Brockert with a second by Councilman Saucedo. Any discussion? Hearing none. Councilman Spread, how do you vote?
Aye.
Harvey?
Aye.
Brockert?
Aye.
Saucedo?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
And Brackett.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. 11B, we have a resolution authorizing the restated plan for the 2013 Muscatine Housing Urban Revitalization Area. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Now, we have a motion by Councilman Harvey with a second by Councilman Brackett. Any discussion? Hearing none. Councilman Malcolm, how do you vote?
One moment, Your Honor. On the paperwork that was submitted, that was online for us, it actually said that there was a map, and I was unable to pull down the map. I guess I'm gonna vote in favor of, but I'd kinda like to be able to see the map too, and just for historical purposes.
So, map of, I see what you,
It was an exhibit to the, since
for the
this-
original one? Right,
This was
right.
done in 2013 according to what I was reading.
Online, you can, if you go to the urban renewal plan page, it'll show you the 7 or 8 districts that were at it.
Sure.
And then at the last discussion, we showed you a map of the area that's being
That's what I'm
added.
saying. I pulled the whole thing down and printed it out, but it didn't print a map.
No, under the urban renewal plan section from 2013, when it was adopted, there were 7 or 8 different districts that were
Okay.
added to the urban revitalization plan. This plan is adding one district to the urban revitalization plan, and that is that area directly adjacent to Fridley's,
Okay.
as you're coming down that bypass, and that's
Okay.
the map. Sorry, I can't talk. What we will be doing is adding and talking to bond council, we'll be adding all of the addresses and locations from the previous one, as well as that new one to the exhibits.
Okay. Like I said, since it was before my time, I was trying to catch up with
But
everything.
if you go to that community development page and look on the left-hand side, you'll see the urban revitalization or tax abatement, and it'll show you all of the maps where we have tax abatement available.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Councilman Malcolm, was that an aye vote then?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilman Spread?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey? Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. We are on down to 11C. Presented for City Council's consideration is the third and final reading of an ordinance amending Title 8, Chapter 5, Section 2, and Title 8, Chapter 5, Section 4 of the City Code for rental facilities and units. This item was reviewed with City Council at the December in-depth meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance on third and final reading?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Fitzgerald with a second by Councilman Saucedo. Any discussion tonight? Hearing none. Councilman Spread, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
And Councilman Malcolm.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted with all ayes. We're on 11D. Presented for City Council's consideration is the third and final reading of an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 20, and Title 10, Chapter 31, Section 1 of the City Code Home Occupation Regulations. Rewriting this portion of the City Code would regulate home occupations, allowing them to be more beneficial to the community and limiting others that have proven irritating to residents and have generated complaints. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance on third and final reading?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by Councilman Fitzgerald. Any discussion?
I have a few questions. So, in reading this, basically, we talked last time in regards to were there any motions, Andrew, in trying to say, okay, we are grandfathering some businesses in, we're not intending to try to stop any businesses that are operating as sort of a home business? Is that still the case?
So, looking through, there's no currently existing home-based business that I am aware of that would be made illegal. There are a few where their operations may be impacted, primarily as it relates to the number of work vehicles that they have parked in and around the property and outdoor storage. And talking about just in the brief summary, that those, in terms of home occupation, that's where about 95% of our complaints with existing home occupations have been generated from.
So if I were to ask you, would you say that the number of businesses that would be impacted by this would be 10? 5?
Less, I would.
Okay, less than 10. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
I wanted to make a.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
Councilman,
well, and he can stand for clarification.
okay.
I just wanted to make a comment on that too, and the way that I understand it is that what this does is this brings it so that businesses that are currently not allowed, just because there's not a regulation for it, this actually provides a guideline to where they can operate legally. So it's, in most cases, it's actually making things legal that maybe weren't already. Is that correct?
I think that's a very fair summary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no other discussion, Councilman Spread, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
And Councilman Brackett.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted with all ayes. 11E. Presented for City Council's consideration is the third and final reading of an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 21, and Title 5, Chapter 11 of the City Code Sign Regulations. The next step in the modernization of this ordinance is the rewriting of the portion that regulates signs. The primary intent of this rewrite is to make it more user-friendly and understandable. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance on third and final reading?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Saucedo with a second by Councilman Spread. Is there any discussion tonight? Hearing none. Councilman Fitzgerald, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Spread?
Aye.
And Councilman Harvey.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted with all ayes. 11F. Presented for City Council's consideration is the second reading of an ordinance amending various provisions of the City Code of Muscatine to remove the possibility of imprisonment for City Code violations. On April 21st of 2017, the Iowa Legislature passed Senate File 374, making cities responsible for defendants' court-appointed attorney fees for City Code violations that carry the possibility of imprisonment. It is recommended that to avoid these charges, the possibility of imprisonment be removed on all City Code violations. Is there a motion to approve the second reading of this ordinance as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by Councilman Saucedo. Any discussion? Hearing none. Councilman Spread, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
And Councilman Brackett.
Aye.
The motion carries with all ayes. 11G. Presented for City Council's consideration is a resolution setting a public hearing concerning the West Hill Sewer Project Phase 4. Phase 4 must be built in the next 2 years to keep on schedule with the EPA mandate. Funds for this project have already been budgeted. The estimated cost of the project, $8,461,975, with $1,561,975 being reimbursed from Muscatine Power and Water for water main work. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Brockert with a second by Councilman Harvey. Any discussion?
Just one question real quick.
Okay?
Jim, how far when we're separating this amount of money as far as set aside 8.5 million plus the 1.5 million reimbursement, how much of this estimate is in line with what we've estimated in the past 3 phases? The first phase, second, and third?
Mayor, council, I believe that about 2 million a year is just about what is or was budgeted for this part of it. So I think those estimates are in line with what had been set up as the total funding sequence for that. Before I launch much further down that, if you have other follow-on questions with that, it might be a good thing to get Nancy up here.
No,
Please.
I just want to make sure that if we're budgeting that amount of money, is that,
Yeah.
are we far off? I mean, obviously the first phase, if it was, 1 million and then we went up to 4 million and now we're up at 8.5 million, I just want to make sure.
Based on their preliminary work, we typically meet in advance with Stanley's and the finance department to make sure that we're staying within our projections, plus or minus, and try and break out those phases as close as possible to those projections that we utilized and worked with PFM on, our financial advisors. So we try to stay as close as possible to that, yet get us to that ending time frame of 2026, 2027.
2028?
2028 for the order, their consent
Yes.
order, but we do have that last project that happens at the Papoose at the
Yeah.
very end.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And tonight's resolution is just to set the public hearing. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Hearing no other discussion, Councilman Malcolm, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Aye.
And Councilman Spread.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. 11H, presented for City Council's consideration is a resolution authorizing the assessment of unpaid abatement costs to private properties. Periodically, the city takes action to assess unpaid nuisance abatement costs to private properties. The nuisance abatement costs for snow, junk, and weed removal, the total is $1,669.30. The administrative fees are $400 and the assessment fees are $800. The total fee being requested for assessment at this time totals $2,869.30. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Harvey with a second by Councilman Spread. Any discussion?
Your
Here-
Honor,
Yes,
I have a quick question. So I'm catching up, so I'm trying to
Certainly.
follow how this works out. So therefore, these are fees we're charging people for stuff that being a nuisance, basically.
Yes.
certainly. In cases where people don't take care of their lawn or their junk and the city needs to go do it,
Is
then they
there a
assess it.
mechanism or procedure for us to pursue getting reimbursed for this money being authorized?
Yes,
Yes, and annually.
Dave has been working on it.
Yes, and annually, I believe, Nancy, you talked to the county, was it 80% that we were getting back on an annual basis? Roughly 80% that we're receiving back on an annual basis, so, pretty good rate of return, not rate of return, but pretty good rate.
Okay, well, like I said, I'm new at this job, so I'm learning.
No.
Certainly, we appreciate the question.
Frankly, this is the process, and if somebody does not pay, ultimately allows us to put a lien on the property. So there, long play is, yeah, we'll get it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I'm good with that. All right, thank you.
Certainly. No other discussion then? Councilman Saucedo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Aye.
Councilman Spread?
Aye?
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
And Councilman Malcolm.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. 11I, presented for City Council's consideration, is a resolution declaring a list of properties deeded to the City of Muscatine in December of 2017 as surplus properties and to authorize the sale of said properties. These properties were delinquent on taxes and Muscatine County deeded said properties to the City of Muscatine for final disposition. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second?
A second.
We have a motion by Councilman Fitzgerald with the second by Councilman Malcolm. Is there any discussion?
I had a question on it. Just, yeah. My only question on it really is, with everything else that I was going through, I didn't have a chance to look at every single property on here. Were any of these occupied in any way, or are these all unoccupied properties, or I noticed a lot of them didn't look like they had any building on them at all?
Just
Absolutely, there's no buildings on any one of
Okay.
those lots.
Okay.
Okay, that was what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that was clear,
Yeah.
so.
Unfortunately, we've done this once before as a request, screwed that up. Did it as a resolution, but the properties weren't deeded to us yet. We had to
Gotcha.
go through the rescission process. Finally, in December, they got deeded over to us, so now we can put the final moniker on it and
Okay.
with your approval.
Gotcha. And that was partly for me because, like I said, couldn't quite tell on all of them if they were empty lots, but also I wanted to make sure the public understood they're all empty lots.
Right, and with the memo, I believe that we did provide maps for each of the parcels so that
There
you
were.
get a chance to see it.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Hearing no other discussion, Councilman Spread, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
And Councilman Brackett.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. 11J, presented for City Council's consideration is a resolution setting a public hearing on the designation of expanded consolidated Muscatine urban renewal area and on the urban renewal plan amendment. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Saucedo with a second by Councilman Brackett. Any discussion? Hearing none. Councilman Spread, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Aye.
Councilman Brockert? Woman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Saucedo?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
And Councilman Malcolm.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. 11K, presented for City Council's consideration as a request to approve a contract with McDaniels Marketing for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. The current contract with McDaniels expired in July of 2017. The new contract would aid in effectively marketing the City of Muscatine. Is there a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second?
Second?
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by Councilman Harvey. Any discussion? Hearing none. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me, Your Honor. I'm curious, I actually reviewed some of the stuff that's available with this, and my question is, don't we have some local vendors that do the same type of work that could have been considered as well, or were they considered? I'd rather have somebody from the same house do the work than somebody outside of the house.
Sure.
And
Greg, would you be able to answer that question?
Yeah, there you go.
Not sure. I'll simply say that McDaniels is the firm that the city and the CVB utilized last year. To my knowledge, we're happy with the results from McDaniels. McDaniels is also the firm that's used by the Quad Cities Convention and Visitors Bureau, and they've been using them for a number of years, and we're happy with their results. And based on their recommendations, which I believe is why the board originally went with McDaniels the previous,
so the
in
question,
2016 or 2017, I don't recall.
let me repackage my question.
Let me take a shot at answering it. We went through the process of putting bids out for this contract was initially offered. We had a local vendor respond to that contract, but made the determination that we would be best served by going with the one that was chosen.
So the answer is, yes, we did consider local
Yes, sir.
talent first.
We did.
Okay, like I said, it's just, I'm not opposed to nepotism, but I'm not against it either. And if I could take care of somebody in the family,
You betcha.
I'd rather keep the money in the family.
I'm Greg Jenkins with the Chamber of Commerce. I support that all the way, believe me.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. That's
Thank
my
you,
question.
Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Hearing no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. We're on 11L. Presented for City Council's consideration is a request to change the parking on Fifth Street between Cedar and Iowa Avenue from the south side to the north side of the street. The Muscatine Traffic Committee feels that with the entrances to the new come and go on Fifth Street, the parking would be better served if it were on the north side of the street. Is there a motion to approve the request as submitted?
I move.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Malcolm with a second by Councilman Brackett. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. Next, we have a couple of presentations. Our first one is by our Public Works Director, Brian Steinman, on the Traffic Safety Improvement Program Grant Update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just give me 1 second here. Apparently the computer wants to update Windows right now, so it's always convenient. Okay, so in August this past year, the Public Works Department, I came before you and at an in-depth discussion, or a regular council meeting, I'm sorry, and to discuss the possibility of getting your permission to apply for a traffic safety improvement grant for the intersection of Hauser and Folium, and also for conversion of Park Avenue from Harrison to the bridge from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. So upon council approval, we submitted those grants. We have been awarded those, well, we haven't been awarded, the wording is, yeah, we've been awarded. We haven't received any funding yet, but we've been awarded, the grants have been approved, there we go, the grants have been approved. The Hauser Folium proposal for the mini roundabout was completely funded for $167,700, and we received partial funding to construct the 4-lane conversion, or 4 to 3 lane conversion on Park Avenue. For $325,000. So these amounts did not include the engineering, so if we choose to move forward with those, we will need to contract for engineering. The estimates there are about $48,000 on the high end for both projects. So after our discussion tonight, if council approves that, then we'll move forward with a motion to hire a firm to do that. I just wanted to show just a brief slide to show the areas in the state that applied. The ones that are in green were funded. The ones that were in orange were not funded, or red were not funded. Orange, some of them are partially funded. So Muscatine received 2 for the county, which is actually very good. You can see the other counties, obviously Des Moines area got more than everybody else, but I thought we fared pretty well. So tonight, what I would like to get from council is if we can get a consensus that we want to proceed, then I will move forward with bringing back the recommendation to move forward with engineering, and we'll go from there. I'll bring that back at our next council meeting. Were there any questions at this point?
Looking at the information, you had a traffic study. Was that traffic study done when school was in session?
The DOT numbers.
Cedar Street being reconstructed, what was the situation?
Yeah, the date for those numbers those are from the DOT traffic counts. You caught me off guard. I'm not sure what year that was. I think it was 2016. But I can confirm that and find out. I do not know whether it was when school was in session or not. I don't know when they put those out. Usually they're in the spring, I believe. It's when they do the traffic counts.
Yeah, well, that intersection has adverse problems, or has major problems during school hours, in the morning and the afternoon.
Correct, and
doesn't have much problem the rest of the time.
Right.
And then your map of the diameter of the mini roundabout was, I think it said 68 feet. It's either 69 ICD or it's 89. Looks like a 6. At 69, that's half the size of the Cedar Street roundabout.
Yes. And this is conceptual design at this point. We haven't moved forward with anything else yet. But that's the whole point of the mini roundabout, is that it is smaller in diameter, it's smaller in size, it has less footprint. So when you have a larger vehicle, and I don't know if you had time to look at the video that was attached to that, the buses or semis, to make the turn, the front axle could go around. If the rear axle trails and goes over the center, it's slightly raised and off and different colored, but it doesn't take up as much space, so they can drive over that. It's designed for that. So yes, it would be much smaller.
Okay.
I had a question as well. What's how long has it been since we took out the four-way stop there? That was the temporary four-way stop.
That was before my time.
Year and a half.
2 years ago.
And so between then and now, we've been dealing with the traffic issues that occur there at the different times of day. But has there been any thought to putting just the four-way stop in permanently?
It's been discussed at traffic committee, and the input that we received from the police and from planning is that it's during those morning times, it's bad. Cars back up to Cedar Street, and I'm not sure how far they back up south, but that's what I've been told.
I can tell you from personal experience that I got caught at the intersection of Cedar and Hauser. In the middle of the intersection was backed up because of that stop sign. So when traffic's heavy, it is an issue.
Mm-hmm. We had those stop signs in through the construction of Cedar
Street,
or reconstruction of Cedar.
Yes.
And then they were pulled out immediately after Cedar, so we really didn't get a handle on whether that was going to work or not.
Because it had double at the time, basically.
Yeah.
Right, and you know, I used to use that intersection a lot due to where I lived up until a little over a year ago, and had two children that went through the schools there on Kindler, and so used that intersection quite a bit. And my opinion, and that a four-way stop might be at least something to start with versus redesigning that whole intersection, tearing up the yards around there. I know it doesn't go nearly as big as a typical roundabout, but I've been getting feedback all week since the article came out in the paper of people that live in that area and have a lot of concern. And just from my own personal usage of that intersection, I would have preferred to see it go to a four-way stop first, and then look at if that solved the issue or not.
Mayor, Council, since I've been here a little longer than Brian on the traffic committee, to provide a little background on that. The only time we did have a stop sign there was during the Cedar Street project. That went up in the spring when that project started. And then that project finished enough where Cedar Street opened, and there was a period over the winter where Cedar Street was open, and we left the four-way stop up to kind of see how it would function when Cedar Street was open. Then they closed it again to finish a little bit more work in the spring. Then when all the work was done, the stop sign was removed. A traffic committee reviewed it twice, and it was a pretty easy decision that a stop sign didn't work there, primarily because it would, at peak times, it would cause traffic to back up, like past Power and Water going north on Hauser and then on the south too. And so that was a unanimous decision by the traffic committee twice. So
I have a question concerning that roundabout. If we accept this grant, are we committed to a mini roundabout?
Yes, the DOT approved the mini roundabout.
So the funding, if we don't do the mini roundabout, we don't get the funding?
Correct.
Okay.
Two questions. Yep. First question is there any kind of assessment of how this would positively or negatively affect the residents around where this area is going to be?
Assessment? No, we haven't done an assessment. We're only in the very preliminary stages of this whole thing. So the grant opportunity was there. We came up with the concept that we thought would work, for traffic safety and to keep vehicles moving. That's where we are now. If we choose to go further, we could definitely do that. If we choose not to, we could still do it later. But right now,
well, I'm sure we'd like to at least consider that, because it's one thing to move traffic. But if I'm a homeowner, I don't want to lose any value on my property.
Sure,
because
understood.
It's a sign of changing and improvement. Mm-hmm. My next question for you is about the one on Park Avenue. We got a partial amount of $325,000. My question is, what's the full cost of this?
The full cost for that one estimated was $427,000.
And I have a question about that. It talks about a 4-lane to a 3-lane conversion of Park Avenue, but it goes from Harrison to the Highway 92 bridge. That means we're doing part of Second Street?
No, this would all be on Park Avenue. It would, as the curve comes around, let me get to that spot.
Goes to the 5-way stop.
But it said it went to the bridge.
It's through
It
that.
says it goes to the bridge.
There, yes, there's the, so I guess if that,
Yeah,
Yeah, it is part of Second.
yes, okay, sorry, you got me, yes,
matter of fact.
But I wanted to know, thank you.
yes.
Before we get too far into any more discussion on that part of it, I did have one more question about the roundabout area. If we accept tonight, do we have to proceed with the roundabout, or is there still a point at which we can, I mean, so can we accept it tonight with the understanding that we are going to then look at planning on it? Because I feel like, I know that there was discussions had previously, I went back and reviewed the documentation, but based on the question that Mr. Malcolm had and some of the other, questions that are coming up about it, I don't feel comfortable saying tonight, I absolutely want to proceed with that plan. I honestly feel the opposite of that at this point in time, but I also don't want to lose out on potential grant money. So if we approve it tonight, can we then decide later, no, where that's not what we're going to do? Or if we approve it tonight, are we set in stone, we're moving forward and planning a mini roundabout?
No, I'm not asking you to approve anything tonight. I just want to know consensus-wise, should I go ahead and contract with the contractor or not? If you'd like to take more time, we can back that out. I need to contact the state and see what their deadline is for implementation of the grant.
Okay.
There may be an opportunity where they would fund something different, but I doubt it because that's what we submitted and that's what they
Right.
approved. So my instinct tells me if we refuse to build a roundabout there, the funding would go away. But there's certainly more time to consider. I mean, if you want to have more dialogue, that's fine. It just pushes that timeline back where we can, move ahead with the planning, move ahead with bidding and construction ultimately. So,
Yeah.
I realize this is a little bit controversial. Roundabouts are controversial. I get that, but and my intent was to have it on DINDEP so we could kind of talk about it a little bit more. And
Sure, I understand that. I mean, I like the large roundabouts. I have concerns about this mini roundabout concept, given the issues that we've got, with the existing roundabout as it is.
Yeah, I think the concept with the mini roundabout is that it fits inside the existing right-of-way. So there is no property acquisition. We don't have to really do anything except we'll build some sidewalks and we'll get this intersection repaired for basically no cost. The larger roundabout really won't fit here with the proximity of the houses on the corners, the power poles. It's not an option there at all.
Right.
And this mini roundabout is less expensive than a signalized intersection. So that's one of the reasons that we looked at this as well, because the signalized intersection in our estimate on here was $300,000. This is half that,
Right.
roughly. So that was the point. I included the links to the Shive Hattery documentation so you could see the video. Coralville has one. It works for them. There are other communities that have smaller roundabouts and they work for them as well. So I realize it's new and it would be something different, but
On the diagram here that we're looking at on the screen, does that have the parts that are in the center? Are those low? Are those like the roundabout part?
It's slightly raised. It's mountable. It's 3 to 4 inches. So you would know when you hit it that you were on it, and it's also different colored so that you would obviously see it's there to go around it. The ideal is to drive your car around it.
Right.
If you have a longer vehicle or a larger vehicle that you can't make it around the whole thing, that's why it's there to drive over. And mountable is what they call it. So if you were coming up Hauser and you want to take a left to go, I'm not good with the street. It's Folium, or not Folium.
Yeah, it's Folium and
Anyway, and you drive in front of your cab run somewhere around, but the back wheels would track over the center of the roundabout, but you'd still get through there.
Right.
Wouldn't it take some of the yard away from some of these people?
Right.
Nothing?
No.
It's just, it's
well,
city right-
yard, possibly
Yeah.
yard, but
It is yard.
It's
Yeah.
correct. It's
Cities.
It's
The boulevard?
It's grass, but
Yeah.
it's city property, city right of way. So, yeah, they'd have less to mow, depending on what
This
you.
is suitable
But the
for
street would be right in their yard, kind of.
Well, not the street. If you look at the red part of that's dyed concrete, so that's more sidewalk and streetscape to delineate that you're at a roundabout and where you need to travel. It's kind of like the Splitter Islands too, are also a separate color, just to denote where to be. So.
I wanted to ask something further on Councilman Brackett's question. So if they give you a consensus tonight to accept the grant, can we still do all of the assessments that Councilman Malcolm was bringing up?
Yeah, I think so. If you wanted to direct staff, me, I could bring Chive Hattery, who designed this, back. We could talk to them. We could do a more in-depth discussion. Whatever you choose, I suppose, we could do. We could have a neighborhood meeting. We could have public comment, however you'd like to operate it. I just want to know, is it worth us spending the money to hire a consultant and pursue this, or should we just stop right now? So that's kind of where I'm
I
at.
have had a great deal of phone calls since this came out, and every one of them has been saying, why don't we just do the stop sign?
Well, and you know, and that has been, you know, kind of the direction that I've been getting, but I also wasn't aware that during the stop, when the stop sign was there, it was backing up all the way past that intersection, and so that's information that I need to have.
I have been on that road myself, and I personally don't go down that road anymore.
In
just because
traffic
I
committee, for what it's worth, traffic committee is
Exactly.
not in support of a stop sign there. We've discussed this numerous times from numerous complaints from residents, and every time it comes back to there, the four-way stop is a consensus no from that committee, so for what that's worth.
Brian, would you be dropping the speed limit in that section?
That's something that we haven't discussed. Entering the roundabout, is it 35 there now, Andrew? Or is it 25?
It's 30.
30. We would have to discuss that when we go into design. I would imagine it might need to go down 25 in that area just to manage the roundabout, but I can't answer that completely right now.
Okay, thank you.
One additional question. How about crosswalks for people to cross the intersection?
Yeah, the crosswalks they're kind of not delineated on there, but it's the area behind the red concrete. So it's back from the intersection farther, which is typical on a roundabout, so that you don't get caught in the middle of the cars.
So my question is, will it be sort of white marking? Are we painting?
We could definitely paint those. They're not shown here, but yes, they'd be painted like any other crosswalk in town.
Yeah, especially since we're close to the schools.
Exactly, yep.
That's probably real important to me.
Problem I have with this mini roundabout, of course, I'm not a fan of roundabouts anyway, but this mini roundabout, if you look at that, it's so small, to me, I see that as a unregulated four-way intersection. It's gonna be a free-for-all.
Well, all I could say to
Well,
that
but
would be to
These
look
drivers
at.
are gonna be aggressive, and they're not gonna let somebody get in if they can cut them off.
I would refer you to the Coralville video. It shows it working relatively well, I think. I guess as Public Works Director and Traffic Committee member, I would say that we are more in favor of this option than anything else that's been currently presented. So that's why we sought the grant funding. That's why we're here today.
So Brian,
Ultimately, it's council's decision whether we do it or not. So.
traffic counts the same in Coralville in this?
Traffic counts in Coralville are actually higher than this intersection here.
Okay, so Brian, let me ask you real quick.
Hauser Street it is. Oh, okay, the 9,500?
The mini round is there, and the traffic was equivalent both ways, and they were just about equivalent to what Hauser was.
I just know that when we switched Mulberry Hauser at my intersection to the three-way stop, because we had it a three-way, worked pretty well, then it was pulled out, and then when we reconstructed and we put the three-way back in there, that has been absolutely
It
fantastic.
works fine.
And it worked fine, even without the flashy lights.
And I don't recall that the four-way stop was up much after Mulberry was done. The main time that the four-way stop was there, everybody was going that way because there was no other way. I mean, they left it up a little bit after, but not a ton.
I can't speak. Andrew can speak to that. I wasn't.
As soon as the contractor finished on Cedar, they yanked them.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't in
short.
there.
It was a little bit of an overlap, I believe.
Mayor, Council, so the timeline of that was I believe it was in the fall of 14, they finished about 95% of work on Cedar. They opened Cedar all the way up, including the roundabout. Then we left the four-way stop up. Then that April or May, they shut the roundabout down again to finish up some of the sidewalk work. And then when that was all done, then it was about that May that then it was totally pulled. So we had about a 6-month period where Cedar Street was totally open and we had a four-way stop there, and there was still significant issues up there. We deliberately left the four-way stop up there to see what would happen. And it was the traffic committee's determination that it wasn't good.
And do we?
Can we vote on these two grants independently, so we're not voting on both of them or none of them?
You can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want.
Well, it's just
I
a
just
consensus-
wanted to provide the
just a
information
consensus.
tonight, so it's up, you guys can do it however you want. Are we done with this one? We want to talk about the other one, or is the other one?
I just have,
Okay.
I have two questions.
Sure.
So, can you clarify the cost again if we were to put in a lighted intersection for this?
The verbal quote that I got was $300,000 approximately to put a traffic signal at this intersection.
That's the same magnitude that we kept hearing about Mississippi Drive reconstruction, that four-way traffic lights are gonna cost you $300,000. I mean, that's a god-awful number. I can't believe 4 traffic lights cost $300,000.
Okay, so.
Yeah, but they do.
That's.
Can we get 'em
I
used?
wouldn't think that it would've cost them a lot to put the road down, but it did. So.
Maybe we can go to Goodwill and see if we can get some there.
I'm not going on that there. So my other question then to you then is, we have this for $167,000. If we were to put in and approve just a consensus, which this roundabout, we were to implement it, let's say a year or two from now, and then found that it didn't have the success that we thought it could you still put in that as a stop? I mean, could it convert back to the other that much, or would it be something completely so drastic of change that it would cost us much more money?
No, to put it back to what it is, you would just grind off the high spots or cut them out and pave back in flat concrete. You could go back to whatever it was.
I mean, all I'm looking at is, I don't want to throw the money away, but at the same time, I don't want to sit here and say, I'm going to charge you, okay, here, I'm going to give you $167,000, but as a matter of fact, no, I don't want that, I'm going to charge the taxpayers $300.
Right, no,
Stop sign's not going to work, as much as we can put it in, and then you're going to see people that are going to continue to now complain, because I've seen it, I don't even go down that way no more. So I can understand that, I'm just asking, could that happen?
Yes, short answer is yes, it could happen.
Okay.
It's just an expense. Councilman Shahade asked the same question related to the Cedar Street. If we don't like it, can we take it out? Yeah, 1.4 million to put it back. Yep, well, we can do anything we want.
That's a little bit bigger though, as a.
What's double?
As far as how wide this one goes. I'm just sitting here looking at it away as, from my personal view, to sit here and say, do I not want to accept $167,000? That's what you're asking me.
However,
well,
Brian, based on Councilman Salcedo's question, I'd want to ask DOT if there's a time period in which, a certain time period that they'd like to make sure that it's open and operating before we could take it out.
Yeah,
I assume there's some type of
correct.
requirement.
We haven't received a whole lot of information from the DOT other than congratulations, you've been approved. So that's why we wanted to know, I wanted to get here early with you guys to see what the feeling was. I kind of had an idea that this would be the feeling for this particular spot. So there's a little bit of time there, and if you'd like, I can go back, I can reach out to DOT, I can talk more to this consultant who helped us with the grant application, and there's a little bit, I think, room to either get more information or not, or if you prefer and you just want to kill it tonight, that's at your discretion. I would say, I mean, I already told you our opinion. I think this is the best option, but that's completely up to council, and we can separate the two. Yes. So if you want to wait on this one and you're okay with the conversion from 4 to 3 lanes, we can proceed with them and contract them to work on that one and go from there. That's an option as well.
Well, it's going to be really difficult to find out because there was a comment by one of the residents about their assessed valuation or their property value going up or down.
And that's something we probably have to get an expert to do that for us.
Well, and that's a crapshoot.
Yeah. On this photograph here, and I did talk to the consultant about this concept. There are 2 properties that you can see on the it would be the east and west side that would be affected by this current configuration. They'd have either a right in or right out to their driveway, which I can appreciate would be inconvenient depending on which way you usually go. With those curbs there, those mountable curbs, if they wanted to, and if they didn't cause an accident, they could, drive over them and go either way. It's not like it's a raised median with anything in the middle of it. It's just a mountable 3 or 4 inch curb that you could drive over. That I understand it could be a concern, and I appreciate that.
It's
But
mountable until you pile snow there.
we wouldn't plow snow there. We'd plow it off with everything else. We wouldn't even feel it with a snow plow.
Would those center ones need to be mountable curbs, or could they be flush with the road?
That would be a safety thing I'd have to talk to the DOT and the consultant about. I'm not sure if that's
Flush with the road,
required.
but a different color.
Right.
Brian, a lot of folks have asked me, since the problem really is only 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon, 5 days a week, and only 9 months out of the year, why are we going to such extremes for just those 10 hours a week, for 9 months?
Because we continue to receive complaints.
Yeah.
That's why. So we're looking for a solution. That's all this is just
And
a
so
possible
these same
solution.
people have followed up with the stop sign that even could be moved after those 2 1 hour periods of time.
I don't know
just
who would do
passing
that, but
on
yeah, I mean,
what-
yeah, I guess.
So the other question I have on with the roundabout, I know that I keep going on about it, but so how much did I miss a number? And maybe I did, because we had a lot of things that all got bundled up. How much we feel it would fix the issue? I mean, like, do we really think that it's going to prevent that backup? I mean, I see how people use the roundabout that we have currently. And until we add roundabout driving to the driver's ed program here locally, I mean, and I'm not trying to be facetious, I'm absolutely serious, that it is not something that people here in town are dealing with all that well, because I think a lot of people don't have a lot of experience with them. I personally love roundabouts. That's not an issue for me, but I'm really concerned about that intersection because it is such heavy school traffic that is not just parents picking up and dropping off, but it's also student drivers. And, from my understanding, there was the accident at the other roundabout the other day, a little bit of snow, slush, something that got backed up, and there's a bunch, at least a few students involved in that. I don't want to I would rather see people inconvenienced twice a day than have a sudden number of students getting in accidents or people with children in their cars getting in accidents. I'd rather see the inconvenience than the danger.
All I can say to that is, that's council's discretion what we do here. This grant was approved by the Traffic Safety Improvement Plan by the DOT. So DOTs feel that roundabouts are safer. They've been proven to be safer. That's all I can say. It's designed to keep traffic flowing. It's a right in, right out yield, but you keep moving, slow down and go. But that's what it's designed to be.
And you don't have those rear end collisions. You have angled or side. I mean, when you do have a collision, typically, based on the statistics, they are safe. Not a safer collision, but they are
Brian, just a
safer overall.
logistical question. Like if you're looking at the roundabout that we have now, so if you are coming up Cedar towards the high school from the river, and there's cars on there, and you're watching people coming on from Logan Street, you have to give them the right of the way. If they got all the way, if they're already on, then they have the right of way. So this is going to be a very smaller amount of area, and I know coming up Cedar towards the high school, it's a very small area to see if those people are already on or not, and if you can get on before they do. This is going to be so much tighter. It's going to be, it seems like a couple of feet on whether or not they're on. I could see people going down Hauser, one car after another, which is how they are during that 1 hour time period, and never these other people getting a chance to get on, which goes to Kelsey's question, is it really going to fix it? Or are we just going to have people there that can't get on because there's such a line going one right after another?
Right, and I'm not a traffic engineer, so I'm not sure how to best answer that question, other than we have been told and it's been shown that yes, it does work. Okay. I'm sorry, that's a cop-out.
But I wonder if those places have the concentration of it being just during a big mass time, and the rest of the time it probably does work fine.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know that. That would be something that we could investigate that if council would like, and like I said, if you choose to ditch this idea now, we're done. If you would like to get more information, I could bring somebody back. They have offered to come to a council meeting and answer some of these questions better than I could. That's just however you direct us to do that.
I'd like to see some additional information, but I also am not interested in throwing the grant out the window. So
Okay.
if I guess if you could check with DOT and they say, hey, you got 3 months to decide whether you want to take the grant, well then,
Sure.
okay, let's talk about it.
Okay, well,
If
let's-
they say you got until February 1st, then we need to accept the grant.
Sure, understood. So if, on that note, we'll pause on this one and I'll move to to Park Avenue. Is that okay? Is there any more questions at
I
all?
would also like to have us provide some type of an opportunity for the people to share their
Public
opinions.
input? Sure, okay. I will.
So
I'll
do you
arrange
still
that.
need a consensus from us?
Well, I just need
Just
direction.
to move on forward on the
Yeah,
grant?
so I guess what I'm hearing is for this one, I'll come back with more information at a later date. I'll contact the DOT tomorrow. I'll get more information from them, and then whatever it fits into our council agenda, ideally probably be in-depth session. Depending on what the time frame is for DOT, I'll modify that.
So no approvals, just follow up.
But,
And
well,
Steve Shive
but
Hathaway can attend.
Yeah.
If, for instance, he calls them and they say, you got until February 1st to decide, I don't want to have,
No, we have more than, we have more time than this
Drop the
February
ball.
1st.
Drop
The DOT, do you realize how long it takes to get stuff to the DOT?
well,
Yeah, we've got more time than in 1 month.
they may have
Gonna be
already spent a
guarantee
whole
that-
bunch of
no.
time on their list.
Be
Okay,
lucky.
in the essence of time, if you will allow, I will move to Park Avenue 4 to
Thank you,
3 lane
Ryan.
conversion.
Government agency, which
Were there any questions on this one, or is this one, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, with the narrow lanes on Park Avenue, this would be a chance to take those 10-foot lanes and create 2 13-foot outer lanes and a 14-foot center lane, which gives space for wider vehicles. Yes, you reduce the number of lanes, but you also gain that center turn lane, which allows you to slow down, make your turn left or right, whichever it is. So primarily, this grant is, the cost associated with this grant is full depth patching to repair the street, paint striping. I brought a little bit more information. There's a bid tab for this one that is, I guess it's hard to read. But this is the engineer's estimate that was proposed for the grant. So traffic control, full depth patching, pavement, removal of pavement markings, installation of new pavement markings, installation of symbols, signs. It adds up, and it sounds like a big number. And we think that the 421.8, I'm sorry, we think we can do this for closer to the 325. They estimate a lot of ADA sidewalk improvements in there that we don't think are necessary because we'll be working within the curb and gutter sections that are existing. So there shouldn't be any need to go outside of that, which requires us to do the ADA ramps. So the cost savings on there brings us much closer in line with the 325 that was approved for funding. If council approves, we could easily fund that gap with roadway maintenance funds. So
So we're going to, I'm 100% in favor of this.
Yeah.
Because I drive a full-size van, and that ain't pretty going down that street with 4 vehicles. I guess my concern is if we're going to not do the handicap ramps when we're doing street work, doesn't seem like a smart thing to do. And the other thing was, you had another, on the website, you got another picture of before and after.
that one
Yeah.
or that one?
No, the one,
This one?
that one.
Okay.
Are those bike lanes on the side?
No, that's just, no.
Just
That was off,
that's a scary thought,
that was an
too.
internet graphic that I just brought so you could see it a little bit clearer than the other one. That was just to show that the center turn lane and the outside lanes.
Okay.
No.
Go back
I would
to-
have the same question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go to the dimensioned one again.
This
I
one?
can't read that. Can you give me the before and after lane widths?
10-foot lane widths currently, and the finished lane widths would be 13 foot on the outside lanes and a 14-foot center lane. So your overall curb to curb is the same. You're just changing what's in between the curbs, which is the reason that you don't need to touch the ADA ramps. We do have a sidewalk program. If we wanted to do the ADA ramps at a later point, we could add those to it. If we get into a section of curb and gutter where it's attached to the ramp, then we would have to do the ramp. And so there might be some that have to be improved, but not all.
Okay. Well, this is something that we've talked about this for years.
It's in our comprehensive plan. It's a high priority list. So
And
this gives us a chance to
with
get it.
Mulberry and Hauser Street, The only problem we have on those streets is they think the center lane is a passing lane.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this would be similar to Colorado or University, you know. if
But you're not
people
gonna
familiar
stop
with
that.
Right, but that's what the configuration would end up being like, so. And it gives us a chance to repair that street at no city cost, is the nice thing that I like about it. We get a lot of patching done on that, so.
Well, the other thing too, I know I've had some people comment concerns about, the semis. I actually look at this and I think it's easier for the semis because then you've got the ones coming from 22. When they go to turn, they're not cutting into the traffic lanes. Right. Does that measurement work out? Then they wouldn't be cutting into the, because when you're at like the intersection there, I don't know how many times I've had to put it in reverse and back up so that a semi can come onto, can take a left turn at that intersection.
Turning off onto 22 from the right, they may still need to go wide there, but but I don't think we'll fix that, depending on the driver.
But it's not going to start that close, is it? It's not going to start till Harrison, right?
It'll start from Harrison down, so at
Right.
22, well, at 5th Street, that intersection there.
Right.
That could be a wide turn, but wide right turn, but the radius on that return is wide enough anyway where trucks can usually make that. So yeah, and you just have that buffer. Yes, you won't have to be right next to the semi, but you'll have so much more space.
I think that's a no-brainer.
And that's a safety issue too, which is why it was approved. So.
Right. Yeah. This one I don't have any complaints about. I know there's concerns about it. I just want to make sure people understand that, this is definitely a benefit. Regardless of how I feel about the other.
Okay, so Mayor, if you could get consensus for me on this one,
A lot of people were confused, thinking there was also going to be a roundabout on Park Avenue, and I've answered most people.
Yeah,
anyone that
wasn't
has
clear.
Contacted me, but just to clarify, there's not going to be a roundabout on Park Avenue.
This is just lane reconfiguration. No traffic signalization of any type on this one.
That's because the newspaper.
Two questions
Right.
about this. At Colorado Clay intersection and down there on Washington Street intersection where there's the traffic lights, will there be a left turn light put in?
That would be up to the consultant to figure that part out. I'm not sure how it lays out. That would be part of the design.
I would say.
And before we approved it,
why we
like
wouldn't
any
put
other
in
plan,
left
we
turn
would come
light.
back and have that plans and specs to review for council to and approve. So I just need to know whether or not to let the consultant or hire a consultant and have them start work is what I need to know tonight.
Yep.
Another question. When you get through the five-way intersection and get on 2nd Street, is that the same width, curb to curb?
I believe it is, but that's something that would be studied more in detail if we
Are you
approve
going to
it.
have to choke it down through that intersection or what?
No, I don't think so. The intersection configuration there is odd, but that isn't part of this either. This is just the lane reconfiguration. We do have a future project possibly to change how that intersection works to make it safer, but not included in this. This is just basically restriping the street, if you will, is what it boils down to.
But you will be going through that intersection
We'll be
down
going
to the
through the
bridge.
intersection, correct.
I guess that raises a question about a left turn signal at the bridge too, yeah.
It's all something that would be part of the design if we move forward.
So Brian's looking for a consensus to move forward on the Park Avenue project.
Yeah.
Do we have consense?
Yes.
Sounds like you got to go on that one.
Thank you. I will
And we
bring
look
back more
forward to more
information at a later
information.
date, and if there's any other questions, you can email me or let me know.
I assume the
Ryan.
council will have further input
Once,
on both of these.
oh yes, definitely. We'll have plans and specs for review, just like any other project, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Our next presentation, Nancy Leak is going to talk to us about the local option sales tax. She had her PowerPoint up there so nicely.
In November, City Council took action to set the date for a referendum to renew the local option sales tax. So we put together some basic history, where we've been, where we are now, and then the plan for the future. And this 11-slide PowerPoint will take us for quite a few years, but it will go pretty quickly. The history of the local option sales tax, it was first approved in May of 1994, originally for a 5-year period to be used 100% for storm and sanitary sewer projects. In August of '98, it was extended for an additional 5 years, also for storm and sanitary sewer projects. In January of 2003, voters voted to allocate 10% of the tax to complete the financing for the original Pearl of the Mississippi projects. And a later slide details just what those projects are. It's been a while, but a number of projects that are still widely used today. In January of 2004, it was extended for an additional 5 years, also with 10% for the Pearl projects. And then in August of 2008, it was extended for 10 years with 80% of the proceeds to be used for storm and sanitary sewer and 20% for pavement management or street projects. And that's what's been in place for over 8 years now. Some of the history. That's 23 years since 1994. I've got a spreadsheet with 23 columns on it. So, $54.37 million has been generated from the local option sales tax, and that was from its inception to June 30th of last fiscal year. Early in the collection, we did have money that was being invested. Now we're pretty much using it as we receive it. So there was $1.28 million in interest earned, and so that totals to $55.4 million. 55.426 million projects that have been funded through June 30th of 17 for sewer, street, and the Pearl, the Mississippi projects. 49.7 million of that was for sewer projects, 4.25 million for the pavement management projects, and that was only for the last 8 years, and 1.45 million for the Pearl of the Mississippi projects. The sewer projects, I've got a list of it's hard to see on the slide, but the paper copy, I've pointed out some of the major sewer projects that have been completed. Over $3 million for the Upper Orange and Oak Street sewer separation project. 2 phases of the South End sewer extension project, about $3.6 million and close to $5 million. And this actually extended sewer service down to the south end, which helped to actually spur some development there. We also extended water down to the south end, the places that weren't served. And that was funded from TIF funds. So from extending water and sewer, it's really assisted that area in development. 2.5 for the Central Business District sewer. Mad Creek area, 3.5 million. The Hershey Avenue sewer separation area, that was about 8.5 million. That particular project was one that was also in the EPA consent order, and that has been completed. The West Hill project, the phases we've done so far, phase 1 through a portion of phase 3C, 14.25 million. And then there were 25 other smaller projects that totaled 9.3 million. So that comes down to our 14.7 million of sewer improvements that were done. Using local option for these projects allowed them to be completed without borrowing funds, without incurring interest, and without having it go against sewer rates or property taxes. The next slide, just a refresher on the original Pearl of the Mississippi projects. $10.6 million total project cost. That included the Weed Park Aquatic Center, the trail extension along the river, Musser Park Skate Park, community art, that's the clam man sculpture on the riverfront. Marina improvements, the relocation of the boat launch ramp, Riverview Center renovation, and that took it from a unsightly building to what it is today that's widely used and rented. And then the county had the environmental learning center that was also part of the original group of CAT projects. So with that project, there was $1 million in CAT grant funds, a lot of local contributions, other grants, and county funds to complete that. There was some city bond proceeds for the local match, but that $1.45 million in local option sales tax allocation helped to complete the financing for those projects and to get the whole range of projects completed. And that was through from FY 2003 through FY 2009. The pavement management projects, and that's only been for the last 8 years, 8+ years now, the 20% allocation. That 20% allocation during that time period averages $533,000 per year. Normally, we budget that to supplement road use taxes to complete a variety of street improvement projects on an annual basis. Most of it is the annual asphalt overlay project or full depth patching projects. That is total of $3.6 million. We also used the local option funding to assist with the financing of Cedar Street, Colorado Street, and the Diana Queen Drive extension project. So that totaled up to $4.27 million so far from the local option for streets. The EPA consent order, that was signed by the city in 2007, basically agreeing that the city would complete sewer separation projects that were listed by the year it was originally 2024, but we received a 4-year extension to 2028. The construction of the Hershey Avenue sewer separation was completed in FY12, and that was one of the last major projects in the consent order, leaving the very large West Hill area as the final area to complete. There would have been more sewer separation projects mandated if the city hadn't been proactive in doing some of these before there was a consent order. And some of those were on that list of projects funded from the local option sales tax. So that even though we have a lot to do, a lot was already done by the time we had that consent order. Kind of where we are now. We're nearing completion on Phase 3C, and that'll complete the third phase of the project. Once that is completed, the West Hill area is about 35% done. Stanley Consultants prepared an estimated cost for the rest of the project to complete Phase 4, again in 3 phases, A, B, and C. Then Phase 5, also A, B, and C. And then the last Phase 6, there's actually 5 different sub-phases to Phase 6 to complete the project. The total contract costs for Phases 4 through 6, a little over $32 million. And the total estimating cost, including engineering, project management, legal, et cetera, is over $40 million. And their model assumes an annual 3% escalation factor for the costs. Based on those projections by Stanley's finance staff and our financial consultant, PFM, prepared a long-term financing plan. In addition to the local option that's been funding it, the city started in FY12 setting aside $400,000 a year to assist in financing the project, and $200,000 of that is from the Water Pollution Control Fund, and $200,000 from the Collection and Drainage Fund. Those allocations are projected to continue throughout 2028 in this model. Local option sales tax, subject to the approval at this referendum in March, would be sufficient to fund project costs for all phases of Phase 4 and 5. And then a state revolving fund loan is projected to be needed around 2023 to fund the remaining Phase 6, which is shown in 5 different phases at this time. Based on the current estimated cost assumptions, and again, this is looking out pretty far, per the model that PFM developed, about the loan that would be needed in 2023 would be $22.8 million. The SRF loan currently is at 2%, and we would hope it would stay at that rate. PFM prepared a loan repayment schedule based on a 10-year loan with the final payment in 2023, 33, 34. I'm not used to saying that as a fiscal year yet. And the model also assumes that the 80% allocation to sewer projects would continue in the local option ballot question. So this would, to complete the project and repay the debt on the project, would require a 15-year local option tax extension, and that's what was done in November, and that's what's included on the ballot question. So I've actually written out the ballot question there exactly as council approved it, but it's basically continue the local option at 1%, effective July 1, 2019, when the current expiration of the current 10-year period is, until June 30th, 2034. Revenues are to be allocated not less than 80% for storm and sanitary sewer projects, including principal and interest on the debt, to repay loans for those projects, and then continue the 20% allocation for street improvement projects. We're required to state how much is for property tax relief, and so we're saying 0% for that because it's all for streets and sewers. The term again is proposed at 15 years. Referendum date has been set for March 6th. And just to state again, having that local option tax in place, I know we set the public hearing tonight on Phase 4. It'd be nice to know that the local option financing has been approved by the voters and is in place to continue having the local option tax fund Phase 4, Phase 5, and the rest of the project. And having it in place would mean that that very large West Hill sewer separation project could be done without the city's property tax rate being affected, or that sewer rates would also not be impacted by this very large project. So this is kind of a summary. We want to, we've been working with Kevin Jennison, the communications manager. He's going to put out some public information on the proposal, but we wanted City Council to have the basic information, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Council, any questions?
Oh, it's very well explained, thank you.
Just a excuse me. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the financing, but anybody know how Muscatine compares up and down the river for how far we are along in separation?
A lot.
Jim, can you help?
I would think other cities are probably having difficulties.
Mayor, Council, the first thing don't want to do is we don't want to piss all of our good friends off up and down the river. So I'm going to couch these words as best as I know how. We are way ahead of the pack. We potentially, even on that schedule, could be the first community to accomplish what is no less than a monumental undertaking. Some of the river communities, what I would say, have given it nothing more than a token. Well, we'll do this little project here and that little project there. So they've spent a few million on a project that is 50 million. Just in general terms, we're ahead of everybody else. Put it in perspective, the phrase that I hear used the most about our nearest neighbor upstream is they haven't started yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
You think the state will give us an attaboy?
I was so sure I was done, I didn't even hear you, Alan. I'm sorry.
You think the state will give us an attaboy and maybe a plaque?
Permission to go off script for just a second, Mayor. I think EPA is waiting for us so that when someone else says, that's too much money, we can't do it, they can go, what about Muscatine? They did it. If I was an EPA person, that's what I would do. You can't really show that it's possible till somebody shows you it's possible. That's just my opinion. I don't know that for a fact.
Thank you, Jim.
The key point is, we started this a long time ago. And when the consent order came out, there were cities who went, huh? What? You want us to do what?
Right.
And we were already doing it, so.
Any other questions or comments for Nancy?
I just wanted to comment on what Nancy said about having the communications director get word out. And I think we definitely need to make sure the public understands how important this is, that it gets passed, that what it's going to accomplish and how I'm not sure where, what guidelines we have for putting that communication out there, but I definitely would love to see people understand what it really could happen if we don't get this passed. So
The plan is to have Kevin at least do a weekly article on, and I think there's going to be one coming out tomorrow, and then break that out into segments and continue that on through. We, as city staff, have to stick with the facts.
Right.
And so we'll be putting the facts out, what's been done and what the plan is, and sticking to those facts. And certainly be working with Kevin to push those out on a weekly basis is our goal.
Yeah.
Is this PowerPoint on the website?
Yes. Oh, no.
This might be helpful too.
It will be.
Thank you, Nancy.
I have one quick one, make sure I'm wrapping my head around this properly. So basically, we're talking about this local option tax. It's already in place, we're using it, been using it for a while. We want to extend it, using it for another 15 years.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So in other words, your tax is not going to go up, but we want to make sure we're not going to let your tax go down. We need the tax to stay where it is.
And it's sales tax.
It's sales tax.
Okay, I got that.
Right.
And we're required to do the project. We don't have a choice in the matter.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to fund it one way or another, and this is the easiest way to fund it without touching any other monies.
And I had closed mine out. It is actually on the website.
I think that from a public approach, people would appreciate the fact knowing that we already are doing this. We just like to keep it in place for another 15 years until we finish the job. And so once you understand that this is nothing really changing,
Right.
but this is a need that's there, and we need to keep using this for another 15 years, and then revisit it then. And I think that's probably the emphasis.
Right.
One of the pennies in the 7 cents that you pay on every dollar when you buy stuff goes towards this.
The other option is, can we do a GoFundMe page? I just thought it, you know.
Thank you, Nancy. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I would dare say that if it doesn't pass, there will be an impact on property taxes.
Then we'll look at that GoFundMe option.
No attaboy.
Next, we have a discussion on the proposed proclamation making February 25th the annual Alexander Clark Day. And is that you, Councilman Malcolm?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. After being in different meetings and stuff, prior to getting the privilege of being able to sit at this seat, and also visiting with the state historical people, was that those people from the state? I forgot the committee that we met at the Art Center, the State Historical Society. Right. So they were looking to help us promote our city, our tourism, our assets. And one of the biggest things that was pushing with them was Alexander Clark. And I thought about it for a little bit, and I says, well, we were probably missing a very golden opportunity, since the state is very active at trying to promote that. This year, this spring or summer time, if I'm correct, Mr. Clark court case celebrates 150 years of desegregation, which was the cornerstone used in Brown versus the Board of Education in the United States Supreme Court. There are a lot of people, historical people, not just legal people, but just people that like history, would like to celebrate stuff like that. And this could be used as part of the tool to promote our tourism, get people to visit and see our beautiful city, stay in our brand new hotel, all these things. But it's kind of hard to get people to come to your house if you ain't excited about what's in your house. And just makes common sense. I mean, if I buy a new sofa, I'm gonna invite everybody to come over and see my new sofa. Mr. Clark was a very big asset from my understanding of everything I've reviewed. Some of you probably know more about the history of this Mr. Clark than I do. I'm kind of fond of the fact that he was a minister, and since I'm an ordained minister, I'm kind of fond of that. Also, he covered a lot of ground. He did a lot of good. He was a neighbor that helped a lot of neighbors. And I think that we missed the opportunity of promoting the good that he did. He was homegrown, and you need to come see where he lived, and maybe some of that will get on you. I mean, let's promote what we have. I think it's a very vital asset. And instead of us doing a yearly proclamation, let's make it just a day that everybody knows about it. Another feature that struck me as odd, my granddaughter brought this up, the fact that he's an African-American man. His birthday is next month during African Black History Month. It works for me. We don't have a lot of African-American heroes here in Muscatine yet, soon coming. But let's start off with Mr. Clark. Let's, unfortunately, I think it's a little late in coming, but at least it came. Let's make it valuable. Let's promote Muscatine. Let's get people to come and see the Clark House, the Clark Historical District. Our tourism and tourism trade group can help with this. Who knows, by then we might even have a roundabout in, and they can come see our new roundabouts. We'll get an Alexander Clark roundabout. But I think it's just something that we need to promote from all the things that he did to help us as a barber, an entrepreneur, First Black Methodist Episcopal Church, organized Iowa's Black Regiment during the Civil War, state active National Republican Party person, He was in the community working and became an attorney, published, a newspaper publisher, and a United States ambassador. What an impressive resume. And he was one of our neighbors. I just think it just makes good sense. I mean, we have people who go to visit other people who did stuff. People go to Springfield to see Abraham Lincoln's house. People go up by Iowa. I think I saw something about Ronald Reagan's backyard or something. That's nice. Let's go to Muscatine, where we have a real hero. Somebody, a neighbor that helped another neighbor. So I propose that we make this a permanent day that's acknowledged. I think that as a result of us being excited about our homegrown hero, the State Historical Society will be very active in pushing this. I understand from other people who've talked to me that there's ongoing discussions. Like I said, there's active discussion about this spring or summer possibility of some sort of convention here celebrating the historical act of the Supreme Court decision. There's a lot more stuff. Why miss the opportunity? What does it cost us to celebrate and acknowledge one of our own?
I'll second your motion.
I have a question. We've never done anything like this before. Is this done by resolution, by ordinance, by simple motion?
This was simply a discussion item for action at the following meeting. I believe the intention was to make it a proclamation, but council could certainly do a resolution as well.
I think I'd rather see it as a resolution, or I don't want us to have to keep doing this every year. And we have a lot of other things we need to talk about. Let's do this one time. Everybody acknowledge it. It'll move on. I understand the MCC does an annual teaching and have a big conference about it. I think as it builds momentum over time, maybe we'll get around to maybe like Columbus Day, have a Columbus Day parade. We'll have a Alexander Clark parade, but we'll save that for later. Yeah. But tonight I think we just need to move forward. I think Daniel Clark has his hand up to add some flavor to it.
Would you like to come up and say something?
I am Dan Clark. I have worked with Kent Sissel, who preserved and restored Alexander Clark's 1878 house on West 3rd Street. I've been working with him since about 2004 in something we've called the Alexander Clark Project. Recently, he and I and a couple of other folks have registered the Alexander Clark Foundation. It's mostly a dream so far, but and I didn't know this proposal was coming up, but it fits perfectly with the way we're looking. The delegation from the state that came on December 1st has followed up with us now and wants to make a site visit back in Muscatine, bringing five people to Muscatine during the month of February to focus just on the Alexander Clark legacy. And as Councilman Malcolm says, this is a very significant year, not only the sesquicentennial of the Clark versus Muscatine Schools case settled by the Supreme Court in April 1868, but it was in the context of a larger movement in our state after the Civil War, when a lot of veterans came back from the war and said they had fought alongside, or maybe not alongside, but black soldiers had carried weapons, and they said, surely we can give them the vote, we can give them other rights, and happily, Iowa did that by constitutional amendment. Our 1857 amendment was changed in July 1868, so it was all in the same context, and Alexander Clark was a leader in both these movements. So the state now wants to do a number of significant things this year, bringing people to look at our little, we call it the Alexander Clark
Heritage District, 4 half blocks that the council approved in 2010, that's not a National Register district. It's what Michael Meharry of Historic Preservation Commission calls a local decorative district. And maybe this would be called a decorative day too. But I agree, it's exactly a step in the right direction. Kent Sissel asked me to come tonight and support this if I could. Kent's not very well right now, and the state has asked us to submit a letter of intent by January 30 to apply for what could be a huge National Trust grant. You have to be invited to do the application, so this is the first step in the process, just an online 5,000 word, the right 5,000, or not word, 5,000 characters explanation of why this is significant to, why our project is significant to African American heritage. And they assure us, because we had some misgivings, the state historian assures us that nobody else in Iowa is being encouraged to apply for this, and so the state is urging us and supporting us. Part of the dream, and I hope it hasn't been shot down entirely, was that the timing would coincide with our new hotel so that in fact we could have a statewide conference celebrating the 1868 constitutional amendment. One of the things we've learned is that Drake University has said they want to do an important conference, and so we've said, well, if that's where it ends up being, we'll cooperate the best we can. But in any case, this is the year, and yeah, there'll be a lot more to say about it.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you so much for this initiative.
Mr. Clark, before you leave, will you please give your address for the record for Cinda?
I'm Daniel G. Clark, 1221 Mulberry.
Thank you.
And just again today, I've been having fun for a dozen years, people saying, so are you related? And I love saying, not as far as we know yet. I always say so-called, I have black cousins. I just say he's a distant cousin.
Thanks again, Dan. Sounds like we want to have this be a resolution. We do have a motion by Councilman Malcolm with a second by Councilman Fitzgerald. Councilman Spread, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Harvey?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Salcedo?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Aye.
And Councilman Malcolm.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. We have Alexander Clark Day on February 25th every year in Muscatine. Last thing on tonight's agenda, we have a discussion and potential action on enforcing city council rules. Who is addressing that?
I don't really have any comments myself. Simply an issue of safety and maintaining order, and we're asked to provide specific clarification. You have that in the packet. That's really all I have.
Yeah, and I think, because of the timing of it, I don't have, I want to go over this further before I have any comments on it, really. So this was what I was looking for at the last meeting when I asked for further information. I just need more time than I had so far to go over it because it just came in today. So
it's appropriate to just table this for now?
That would be my request, would be that we just table it for right now.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second. Because I'd like to digest it a little bit.
Yeah. It's a heavy read.
Yeah.
It is. So we have a motion to table by Councilman Spread, seconded by Councilman Harvey. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is tabled. We need a date that we're tabling it to, I believe.
Typically the next meeting.
That
Okay.
would be what I
That'll
would be
work.
looking for.
So the first meeting in February.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on down to communication from council members. Councilman Malcolm, do you have anything else for us tonight?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Nothing at this time, Your Honor.
Councilman Spread?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Councilman Harvey?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Yes, Your Honor, I do. I have an open letter to citizens. This has been something that's been bothering me for a little while, since probably before the election, and I'd like to share it with everyone tonight. There is still much bitterness following the events of last year. Bitterness is like acid. The longer it remains, the more damage is done. If left in a vessel long enough, acid will destroy the vessel that contains it. Likewise, bitterness and its companion, hostility, destroys families, friendships, trust, camaraderie, and cities. Those of us who sit in these chairs are your representatives. This city is our home as well as yours. We want success for Muscatine just as much as any other citizen. We are here because you, the people, voted to have us as your representatives. To represent you all effectively, we must work together to make the decisions that affect every citizen in Muscatine. The council is the people's sounding board for problems and questions. The tone we set as a city determines how outsiders perceive us, and lately it hasn't been ideal. Us versus them doesn't work. It never has, it never will. We stand to lose a lot more than we already have should we continue on as we have been. Living in the past serves no purpose. No one here wants Muscatine to fail. We have invested too much of our lives and our treasure, but continued bitterness and hostility will destroy us from within. As Pogo said, we have met the enemy, and he is us. To bring this city continued success, we must overcome what divides us and resolve to work together, listen, respectfully disagree, come to compromises. As Judge Judy frequently tells litigants that come before her, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and put on your listening ears. Yes, I'm retired. I watch daytime TV. Citizens and council and city staff need to communicate clearly and concisely to one another. As a member of the city council, we are all human and make mistakes. We also invite citizen input and communication, as do all the others around this table. A dialogue on how we can better communicate is welcome. We as citizens and your representatives can always do better, but we aren't mind readers. We have to know what the people want and need from us, and unless you tell us, we are left to guess, and sometimes we don't guess right. In an atmosphere of civil dialogue and cooperation, we can attract new business, new residents, and continue on the path of renovation and building on what we already have here. Our businesses, our fellow residents, and our opportunities. Cooperation is infectious. It leads to great ideas and promotes growth, goodwill, participation, and optimism for the future. We need to better recognize the positive impact of citizen input on projects throughout the city. Volunteerism needs to be encouraged because there are a lot of great ideas out there. Budget hearings are upcoming. The public is always invited to attend, and if you stick around long enough, you get lunch. There will be a public meeting regarding the West Side Trail and the Grandview Avenue project, to name a few, at various times this year. We look forward to citizen input and conversation, including how best to ensure as many people as possible are aware of all of our public meetings. Please join in working to make our city the very best it can be.
Thank you. Councilman Saucedo, do you have anything?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Councilman Brackett?
I don't think I can follow that up tonight. So I'll just say I agree with that, Nadine. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have some things to study from that we got tonight, and we'll come back to the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Staff, did you have anything else?
Just 2 quick items, Your Honor. Grandview was mentioned. There will be a public meeting on February 7th. There'll be information coming out, but just wanted to get it out for the public tonight. February 7th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Water Pollution Control Plant, and that'll be on Grandview Avenue, or the project. And then, it was just noted, budget starts next Thursday. You'll get your binders, will be handed out next Thursday. We'll have a short presentation on the general fund, and budget sessions start Saturday morning,
And what time is the meeting Thursday?
5:30.
Budget session started at 8 o'clock.
The budget session, we have a budget meeting at 5:30 on February 7th. It's also the same exact time as the public meeting you just announced. That might not work.
Well, there'll be a
Thank
separate,
you.
there'll also be a separate, we can also do a separate council session at an in-depth,
Okay,
for example.
that would be fine.
We could do it.
Is that it?
That's all, Your
All
Honor.
right. I had just a few things. First of all, we have begun a new year. We no longer have Councilman Bynum with us in our council chair, and he was my mayor pro tem. And so I have asked Councilman Alan Harvey if he would become the new mayor pro tem from now moving forward for the next 2 years, and he has graciously agreed. So thank you so much, Councilman Harvey. Next, I'd like to thank, and I've had several people from the community comment to me, and I'd like to thank all of our road crews for the inordinate amount of work that they've been doing this year on our behalf, keeping our roads clear from ice and snow, and it's been a daunting task so far this year. Thank you. I'd like to remind everyone that the next Coffee with the Mayor is this Saturday at 9 a.m. It's 1 week early because budget meetings start the following Saturday, so I hope to see anyone there that would like to come. And lastly, I have a question that keeps coming back to me from a couple of different people in the community, and that is what is going on with the Costas house that was moved, and it doesn't seem like anything happens with that house, and every once in a while, about every other week, somebody will call me and say, now there's animals living in it, and nothing's being done. Is there anybody that,
Dave's not here.
Dave's not here, Al.
I'm making a note, Your Honor, and we'll
Okay.
get out a
Can we
written
get some
update to
info
you
on that,
on the
please?
house that was moved.
It has been boarded up, at least
Partially.
partially.
Yeah.
The upper floor is not boarded up. It needs to be addressed. The building needs to be totally enclosed so that animals can't get in there. Otherwise, he's following all code requirements and for a
this
private
last
residence.
call I got was that some of the boards are down now, and there's more access by animals.
I would imagine.
We'll get you an
So,
update.
thank you. That's all we have for tonight. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Councilman Harvey.
Did I hear your echo?